Blood dripped from Zara Williams' wrist as security dragged her through the terminal. The 17-year-old honor student remained eerily calm despite the brutality, her dignity a stark contrast to flight attendant Rebecca Whitman's racial slurs caught on dozens of recording phones. The unjust removal from Aurora Airlines Flight 1824 seemed like another case of discrimination until Zara finally received her one phone call. "I need to speak with my father, Marcus Williams, CEO of Aurora Global Airlines," she stated calmly, watching shock spread across every face. Would justice finally be served, or would powerful forces still manage to silence the truth? Before we begin this shocking story, let us know where you're watching from. And if you believe in standing up for justice against discrimination, hit that like and subscribe button to support more stories exposing the truth. Zara Williams had always been exceptional. With straight A's and perfect SAT scores, the 17-year-old senior had earned an interview at MIT's prestigious aerospace engineering program. What made her stand out wasn't just her academic brilliance, but her resilience in a world that constantly underestimated her. As the daughter of Marcus Williams, the quietly powerful CEO of Aurora Global Airlines, Zara could have had everything handed to her on a silver platter. But Marcus had raised her differently. Success without earning respect is hollow, he'd always told her. This philosophy led him to keep his ownership of the airline remarkably low profile, even using different family names in business settings to avoid accusations of nepotism or special treatment. Zara had grown up understanding that her achievements should be hers alone. At Westlake Academy, her predominantly white private school, Zara faced daily microaggressions that taught her patience and composure. The surprise on teachers' faces when she outperformed expectations, classmates asking to touch her natural hair, or being mistaken for the only other black student in her grade, these small indignities had armored her for the world. During their last conversation before her trip to MIT, Marcus had warned her about the prejudice she might face traveling alone. "The world won't always see your brilliance first, Zara. They'll see your skin. Remember who you are, especially when others forget." She had nodded, thinking she understood, but nothing could prepare her for what would unfold at Baltimore International Airport. The first sign of trouble appeared at the check-in counter. While white passengers moved smoothly through, the agent scrutinized Zara's ID for nearly 5 minutes, comparing her face to the photo with suspicious glances. "Is there a problem?" Zara asked politely. "Just doing my job," the agent replied curtly, finally printing her boarding pass with visible reluctance. Zara noticed other agents processing passengers with efficient smiles, a courtesy she hadn't received. Taking her boarding pass, she headed to security, already calculating how these delays might affect her carefully planned schedule. The security line brought more unwelcome attention. "Random selection," the TSA agent announced loudly, pulling Zara aside for additional screening while dozens of white passengers walked through unhindered. Her carry-on bag was unpacked item by item, her natural hair patted down roughly under the guise of security protocol. Standing with arms outstretched in the scanner, Zara maintained her composure, remembering her father's advice to pick her battles wisely. When finally cleared, she checked her boarding pass while reorganizing her belongings and noticed something odd, a small red mark in the corner that hadn't been there before. Years of observing her father's business had taught her to recognize patterns. This wasn't random at all. Someone had deliberately flagged her for extra scrutiny, creating obstacles at every step. Her heart raced with the realization that her journey had only just begun, and already she was being targeted for nothing but the color of her skin. The boarding process for Aurora Airlines Flight 1824 moved efficiently for most passengers, but not for Zara. Despite holding a first-class ticket, she was stopped for yet another random security check at the gate. The agent rifled through her carefully packed bag, disrupting her organized notes for the MIT interview. When Zara finally boarded, she made her way to seat 3A, her first-class seat by the window. Before she could settle in, a commotion caught her attention. A white businessman in his 50s, who would later be identified as Edward Keller, was arguing with another passenger several rows back. Flight attendant Rebecca Whitman, with her perfectly coiffed blonde hair and practiced smile, rushed to mediate the situation. "Sir, if you'll just show me your boarding pass, I can help sort this out," Rebecca said, her voice dripping with customer service sweetness. The businessman produced his ticket with an entitled flourish. "I paid for first class and that's what I expect," he declared loudly enough for the entire cabin to hear. Rebecca nodded sympathetically. "Of course, Mr. Keller. Let me see. You should be in seat 3A. Right this way." Zara watched in disbelief as Rebecca led Keller directly to her assigned seat. Gathering her courage, she stepped forward. "Excuse me, but I believe there's been a mistake. I'm assigned to seat 3A, Zara said politely, presenting her boarding pass. Rebecca barely glanced at Zara's ticket before dismissing her. "There must be some error with your boarding pass. Mr. Keller's ticket clearly shows this is his seat." The smile that had been so warm for Keller turned frigid when directed at Zara. "But my ticket shows the same seat assignment," Zara persisted, maintaining her composure despite the growing knot in her stomach. Several passengers had begun filming the interaction, sensing the brewing conflict. Rebecca's voice sharpened. "Young lady, you need to stop causing trouble and delaying our departure. There are plenty of seats available in economy." Zara stood, her ground, reciting airline policy she knew by heart thanks to her father. According to Aurora Airlines policy, when there's a seating conflict, both boarding passes should be verified against the passenger manifest. Rebecca's eyes narrowed, dangerously at being challenged. "I'll call my supervisor," she snapped, reaching for the cabin phone. Brian Mitchell, the chief purser, arrived moments later, his tall frame looming over Zara. Without even checking her boarding pass, he sided with Rebecca. "Miss, we need to get this flight moving. We can offer you a middle seat in economy, or you can take the next flight tomorrow." The injustice was staggering, but Zara's MIT interview couldn't be rescheduled. Swallowing her pride, she nodded silently. As she gathered her belongings, Zara distinctly heard Rebecca whisper to another flight attendant, "I don't want her kind up here anyway. First class has standards." The words cut through her like a knife, confirming what she already knew. This wasn't about tickets or seats. It was about her skin color. Now here's a question for you. If you've ever witnessed or experienced discrimination like what Zara is facing, comment number 1 below. If you believe people should stand up against injustice even when it's uncomfortable, hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about courage in the face of prejudice. What would you do in Zara's situation? Quietly accept the humiliation or risk missing your life-changing opportunity by fighting back? Let's continue Zara's journey and see how sometimes the most powerful response to discrimination isn't immediate confrontation, but strategic patience. The economy section felt like exile to Zara as she squeezed into the middle seat between two passengers who barely acknowledged her presence. From this position of defeat, she could see Edward Keller comfortably enjoying the first-class service. That should have been hers, accepting a pre-flight champagne with a smug smile that seemed directed at her. Rebecca made several trips through the cabin, each time glancing at Zara with undisguised contempt. During one pass, Zara overheard Rebecca telling another flight attendant, "We need to keep an eye on her. These people can get aggressive when they don't get their way." These people. The casual racism wrapped in professional concern made Zara's skin crawl. She pulled out her laptop, determined to review her MIT presentation despite the cramped conditions. As the plane reached cruising altitude, drink service began. When the cart finally reached Zara's row, the attendant served both passengers beside her but accidentally skipped Zara entirely. When she politely requested a water, the attendant's curt, "We'll come back," never materialized into actual service. An hour into the flight, the plane hit unexpected turbulence. The sudden jolt sent Zara's laptop sliding from her tray table, landing with a clatter in the aisle. Before she could unbuckle her seatbelt to retrieve it, Rebecca appeared, snatching up the MacBook with suspicious speed, as if she'd been watching and waiting for an opportunity. "Whose is this?" she announced loudly, holding the laptop high. Zara raised her hand. "It's mine. It just fell during the turbulence." Rebecca's eyes narrowed as she examined the computer. "This is a very expensive model. Where did you get it?" The question hung in the air, loaded with implication. "It's mine," Zara repeated firmly. "I use it for my engineering projects." Rebecca turned to a white passenger in the row ahead. "Sir, did you perhaps lose track of your laptop?" The man looked confused, but then, noting Rebecca's pointed expression, slowly nodded. I did have mine out earlier," he offered hesitantly. "That's not possible," Zara protested, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "That's my laptop. My name is even on the lock screen." Rebecca ignored her, turning the computer on to reveal Zara's MIT application essay draft clearly displayed. Despite this evidence, Rebecca shook her head. "This doesn't prove anything. You could have taken this from someone else's bag while they were in the bathroom." Zara pulled out her student ID from her wallet. "Look, my name is on both my ID and the laptop's user account," but Rebecca had already made up her mind. "Young lady, theft is a serious accusation. We take security very seriously on this airline." The neighboring passengers shifted uncomfortably away from Zara, as if criminality was contagious. The white passenger who had initially backed Rebecca's claim now looked uncomfortable with the escalation, but remained silent. The plane's intercom crackled to life. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Due to a security situation on board, we will be making an unscheduled landing in Hartford. Please remain in your seats with your seatbelts fastened." A wave of murmurs swept through the cabin as passengers speculated about the nature of the security situation. Zara felt dozens of eyes turn toward her, prejudging, condemning. In that moment, she realized with crystal clarity what her father had tried to warn her about. This wasn't about a laptop or a seating assignment. This was about her very right to exist in spaces others felt she didn't belong. The plane began its descent, and with it, Zara's hopes for her MIT interview seemed to plummet as well. Her future was now in jeopardy because of nothing more than the color of her skin. The unexpected landing at Hartford International Airport brought a tense silence to the cabin. Passengers gripped their armrests as the plane taxied aggressively to a remote area of the airport, where 3 security vehicles waited with flashing lights. Through her window, Zara could see uniformed officers approaching the aircraft with alarming urgency. Her throat tightened. This show of force wasn't for a simple misunderstanding about a laptop. This was the response reserved for terrorists and violent criminals, and somehow, she had become classified as a threat. The captain's voice came over the intercom again. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated while security personnel board the aircraft. This is standard procedure." But there was nothing standard about the 4 heavily armed officers who stormed down the aisle directly toward Zara's row, led by a grim-faced Rebecca and Brian. "That's her," Rebecca declared loudly, pointing dramatically as if identifying a dangerous fugitive rather than a 17-year-old honor student. "Stand up slowly and keep your hands where we can see them," commanded the lead officer, his hand resting on his holster. Bewildered passengers pulled out phones to record the spectacle as Zara complied with quiet dignity. "What's happening?" "I haven't done anything wrong," she asked, her voice remarkably steady despite the terror coursing through her. Brian stepped forward with a rehearsed speech that sounded as if he'd been planning this moment. "This passenger has exhibited aggressive behavior, refused to comply with crew instructions, and is suspected of theft. She's been disruptive throughout the flight and poses a security risk." Each lie landed like a physical blow. Zara opened her mouth to defend herself, but was immediately cut off. "You can explain at the security office," snapped the officer, roughly grabbing her arm. "I'm cooperating," Zara stated clearly for the benefit of the recording phones. "There's no need for physical restraint." Her words were ignored as the officer twisted her arms behind her back and applied handcuffs with unnecessary force. The metal dug painfully into her wrists, immediately breaking the skin. "The cuffs are too tight," she gasped, feeling warm blood trickling down her fingers. "Please loosen them." The officer responded by tightening them further. "Stop resisting," he warned, though she hadn't moved a muscle. Several passengers protested the treatment. "This is excessive," called out an elderly woman. "She's just a kid," shouted another. But their objections were drowned out by Rebecca's continued narrative. "She's been hostile since boarding. We feared for passenger safety." Being marched through the narrow aisle while handcuffed was humiliating enough, But the true degradation came when they paraded Zara through the terminal. Travelers stopped to stare and point at the young black girl in custody, making instant assumptions about her character and actions. Each step felt like walking through fire as she held her head high despite the public shaming. "I need to make a phone call," Zara requested calmly. "I have rights. I'm a minor traveling alone, and I need to contact my parent." "Criminals don't have rights," muttered one officer, just loud enough for her to hear. "You can call your daddy from jail after processing." The casual cruelty stunned her. They didn't see her as a teenager, or even as a person deserving basic dignity. They saw only a threat to be neutralized, a stereotype to be punished. As they approached the security detention area, Zara caught her reflection in a glass partition, blood now staining the sleeve of her carefully chosen interview outfit. Tears threatening but resolutely held back. Her father's words echoed in her mind. "Remember who you are, especially when others forget." She straightened her shoulders. Despite the pain, they might control her freedom at this moment, but they wouldn't take her dignity or her truth. The security detention room at Hartford International Airport resembled an interrogation cell from a crime show. Stark white walls, a metal table bolted to the floor, and a single uncomfortable chair facing a two-way mirror. Zara was shoved inside with such force that she stumbled, her balance compromised by the handcuffs still digging into her wrists. The door slammed behind her with finality, leaving her alone with the throbbing pain and growing anxiety about missing her MIT interview. 10 minutes passed in isolated silence before the door swung open again, revealing Security Chief Dennis Reynolds, a bull-like man with close-cropped gray hair and cold eyes that assessed Zara as if she were a criminal specimen rather than a high school student. "Sit down," he barked, dropping a file on the table with theatrical force. Zara complied, wincing as the movement sent fresh pain shooting through her lacerated wrists. "I need medical attention," she stated calmly. "My wrists are bleeding." Reynolds ignored her request entirely, flipping open the file with exaggerated importance. "Quite a performance you put on up there," he said with a smirk. "Theft, intimidation, disruptive behavior, refusing crew instructions. That's enough to put you on the no-fly list permanently, not to mention criminal charges." "None of that happened," Zara replied evenly. "I had a valid first-class ticket that was given to someone else. My laptop fell during turbulence and was falsely claimed as stolen. Everything else is fabrication." Reynolds laughed, the sound entirely without humor. "That's not what the flight crew and witnesses say. We have multiple statements confirming you were belligerent and threatening." He pushed a form across the table. "Sign this confession and we might be able to reduce the charges since you're a juvenile." Zara didn't even glance at the paper. "I won't sign anything that isn't true, and I won't be intimidated into a false confession. I need medical attention and my legal right to contact my father." Blood had now soaked through the cuff of her blazer, dripping onto the metal table. Reynolds' eyes flickered to the blood, then away, unconcerned. "You think you're special, don't you? That the rules don't apply to you?" This attitude is exactly what the flight crew reported. The door opened again, and a younger officer entered, female, with dark hair pulled into a tight bun and a nameplate reading Taylor Jackson. She carried a first aid kit and set it on the table. "Sir, protocol requires medical attention for any detainee with visible injuries," she said quietly. Reynolds glared at her but nodded curtly. "Make it quick, Jackson. We have a report to file." As Officer Jackson gently removed the handcuffs and began cleaning Zara's wounds, their eyes met briefly. Something in Jackson's expression suggested she wasn't entirely comfortable with the situation. While Jackson worked, Reynolds aggressively searched through Zara's belongings spread across the table. Her carefully organized notes for the MIT interview, her laptop with engineering designs, her phone, all examined with suspicious scrutiny. When he found her MIT acceptance letter and formal interview invitation, he paused, clearly surprised. "Engineering scholarship interview? This has to be fake," he muttered, though doubt had crept into his voice for the first time. "It's legitimate," Zara said. "I was on my way to an interview for their aerospace engineering program. I need to contact them about this delay." Officer Jackson looked up from bandaging Zara's wrists. Sir, that does appear to be an official MIT letterhead. Reynolds snatched the letter away. Doesn't change the situation. We have multiple witness statements about her behavior. Jackson's lips thinned slightly. Have we reviewed the aircraft security footage yet? She asked. That would clarify what actually happened on board. Reynolds shot her a warning look. That's not necessary. We have reliable witness statements from airline staff. Turning back to Zara, he continued with renewed hostility. You're entitled to one phone call. Make it quick. As he slid her phone across the table, Zara noticed him exchanging a look with Jackson that clearly said, "What damage could one teenager possibly do with a phone call?" If you've ever been in a situation where you were misjudged based solely on your appearance, comment number 1 below. Have you ever witnessed someone in authority abusing their power and felt powerless to stop it? Hit that like button if you believe justice should be blind to color and status. Subscribe to learn what happens when Zara finally makes that one critical phone call. What powerful forces will be unleashed when the truth about her identity is revealed? Would you have remained as composed as Zara in such an unjust situation? Or would you have reacted differently? With steady hands that belied her inner turmoil, Zara dialed her father's number. She hadn't wanted to use his influence, had spent her entire life proving herself on her own merits. But justice now seemed impossible without intervention. Marcus Williams answered on the first ring, his warm voice a lifeline in the sterile detention room. "Dad," Zara said, her composure finally wavering. "I need help." She quickly explained the situation while Reynolds watched with dismissive boredom, clearly expecting a routine parent call that would accomplish nothing. "Put me on speaker," Marcus instructed, his voice shifting from concerned father to executive mode in an instant. Zara complied, placing the phone on the table. "This is Marcus Williams, CEO of Aurora Global Airlines, speaking. To whom am I addressing?" The change in Reynolds' expression would have been comical under different circumstances. Shock, disbelief, and the dawning horror of recognition passing across his face in rapid succession. This is Security Chief Dennis Reynolds, sir," he stammered, his previously domineering posture dissolving as he straightened his uniform frantically. "Chief Reynolds, I understand you've detained my daughter without cause, denied her medical care, and are attempting to coerce a false confession from her. Is this correct?" Marcus's voice filled the small room with authority. "Sir, there must be some misunderstanding. We received reports from flight crew about disruptive behavior." Marcus cut him off. "I've already accessed the airport's security footage remotely and am reviewing it as we speak. I'm also receiving real-time updates about the social media, videos being uploaded by passengers. Should I continue describing what I'm seeing, or would you prefer to correct your understanding of the situation?" Reynolds paled visibly. Officer Jackson, still standing near Zara, failed to suppress a small smile. "Additionally," Marcus continued, "I've initiated Executive Protocol 7 across the Aurora network. All staff involved in this incident are now locked out of our systems pending investigation. I've also spoken with Hartford Airport's director, who is a personal friend. He's very interested in why his security team is detaining the daughter of one of the airport's biggest airline partners without evidence." Reynolds' phone began buzzing incessantly. "Mr. Williams, there appears to have been a serious misunderstanding," he said, sweat now visible on his forehead. "We were simply following procedure based on crew reports." Marcus interrupted again, his voice steel. "I'll be arriving in 20 minutes by helicopter. My daughter is to receive immediate medical attention for her injuries. All personal items are to be returned to her untouched. She is to be moved to the VIP lounge with full amenities until I arrive. Am I understood?" "Yes, sir. Immediately, sir," Reynolds stammered, gesturing frantically for Officer Jackson to help Zara up. "We'll take care of everything right away." But Marcus wasn't finished. "And Chief Reynolds, every second of this incident has been recorded, both on the aircraft and in your detention facility. Every false report, every denial of medical care, every civil rights violation. Don't bother attempting to delete anything. Our systems have already archived it all." The transformation in the security staff was immediate and dramatic. The same officers who had roughly manhandled Zara now treated her with exaggerated care, escorting her to the airport's luxury lounge with profuse apologies. Reynolds disappeared entirely, likely scrambling to contain the damage to his career. Officer Jackson stayed by Zara's side, her previous hesitation now evident as full regret. "I'm sorry," she whispered when they were briefly alone. "I knew something wasn't right about this." Within 15 minutes, the unmistakable sound of helicopter blades cut through the air outside the airport. Marcus Williams had arrived, and the real reckoning was about to begin. Security staff scattered like cockroaches exposed to sudden light, desperately attempting to distance themselves from the unfolding disaster. As Zara watched her father stride purposefully across the tarmac through the lounge window, she felt a complex mixture of relief, vindicating anger, and unexpected sadness. She had wanted to handle this herself, to succeed on her own merits without her father's intervention. But sometimes, she realized, justice required power to face power. And the expression on her father's face made one thing abundantly clear. He was prepared to use every ounce of his considerable influence to right this wrong. Marcus Williams entered the VIP lounge like a controlled storm, his face composed but his eyes blazing with a father's righteous fury. Unlike many powerful executives who shouted to demonstrate authority, Marcus had always been most dangerous when quiet. And he was very quiet now. His first action was to embrace his daughter, examining her bandaged wrists with careful hands. "Medical team is right behind me," he said softly, kissing the top of her head. Then he turned to the airport officials hovering nervously at the door. "Where is Chief Reynolds?" he asked, his voice deceptively mild. The airport director stepped forward, sweating visibly in his pressed uniform. "He's preparing his incident. Report, Mr. Williams. I can assure you that Hartford International takes these matters very seriously." Marcus cut him off with a raised hand. "What you take seriously is evident from my daughter's treatment. I want Reynolds in this room within 5 minutes, along with flight attendant Rebecca Whitman and purser Brian Mitchell. They should bring any devices they use to record or communicate about this incident." While they waited, a medical team arrived to properly treat Zara's wrists. The airport director's phone buzzed continuously as the situation escalated beyond local control. Aurora Airlines' stock had begun plummeting as videos of Zara's mistreatment went viral across social media platforms. Justice for Zara was already trending nationally, with celebrities and civil rights organizations picking up the story. The incident was rapidly transforming from a local security matter into a national conversation about racial profiling in air travel. Rebecca and Brian arrived first, their previously confident demeanor replaced by obvious anxiety. When they spotted Marcus, recognition and fear flashed across their faces. They had clearly never connected Zara Williams with the airline's famously private CEO. Behind them, Reynolds entered with forced professionalism that poorly masked his panic. "Sir, I can explain," he began, but Marcus again raised his hand for silence. "My security team has informed me that all 3 of you have been deleting content from your phones in the past 30 minutes, Marcus stated, watching them carefully. Rebecca's hand instinctively moved to her pocket, where her phone was hidden. That would constitute destruction of evidence, which is a federal offense given that this incident now involves civil rights violations and interstate commerce. The color drained from Brian's face as the legal implications became clear. Marcus continued with deadly calm. Fortunately, our IT department has already recovered everything transmitted from your devices during this incident, including, Ms. Whitman, your text messages referring to my daughter using racial slurs, and your communication with Edward Keller before the flight. Rebecca began shaking visibly. Mr. Keller is employed by Skyway Airlines as VP of Competitive Strategy, isn't he? An interesting coincidence. The airport director's phone rang again, and this time he answered it, his expression growing increasingly alarmed. Sir, he said to Marcus after hanging up, the videos of the incident have surpassed 50 million views. Our board chairman is requesting an emergency meeting with you. Marcus nodded slightly. In a moment. First, I need to address the immediate issue. He turned back to the three people responsible for his daughter's mistreatment. You're all Suspended effective immediately, pending criminal and civil investigations. Your credentials have been revoked across all Aurora systems. Reynolds found his voice at last. You can't just come in here and... Marcus interrupted, his tone finally revealing the depth of his anger. I can, and I am. Hartford International receives 60% of its revenue from Aurora flights. Your personal role in detaining and injuring a minor without cause, while ignoring proper protocol, has been documented extensively. Would you prefer I continue this conversation with federal authorities present? Reynolds fell silent as the full weight of his situation settled upon him. Marcus turned to his daughter, his expression softening. Zara, we need to get you to your MIT interview. I've arranged for a private jet to take you directly to Cambridge. Zara nodded gratefully, but her analytical mind was already working through the implications of what she'd witnessed. The deliberate targeting, Keller's involvement, the coordinated effort. This wasn't just random racism. This had been organized. And as she caught her father's eye, she could tell he'd reached the same conclusion. This incident was just the visible part of something much larger and more sinister. The private jet ride to Cambridge gave Zara and her father precious time to compare notes and analyze the situation more deeply. With Marcus's security team working remotely, they had access to resources most victims of discrimination could only dream about: digital forensics experts tracing communications, legal teams preparing documents, and data analysts combing through patterns of similar incidents. This wasn't random, Zara said, reviewing the evidence displayed on their tablets. The red mark on my boarding pass, the coordinated staff response, Keller's presence, it was all orchestrated. Marcus nodded grimly. Look at this communication timeline, he said, pointing to a complex diagram. Rebecca Whitman received text messages from an unknown number 30 minutes before your boarding, identifying you specifically. As they dug deeper, a disturbing picture emerged. Multiple employees across different positions had received instructions about Zara's travel. Not just at the airport, but throughout the system. Someone with extensive knowledge of airline operations had engineered her humiliation. There's Keller again, Zara pointed out, finding his name in another communication chain. But who is he working for? Marcus's expression darkened. Victor Preston, CEO of Skyway Airlines, my chief competitor and a man who's fought against every diversity initiative I've implemented in the industry. He pulled up a photo of a stern-faced white man in his 60s, silver-haired, expensively dressed, with cold eyes. Preston has been losing market share since we launched our expanded routes to historically underserved communities. He's also on record opposing my appointment as the first black CEO of a major airline. As their investigation continued, they uncovered a complex web of industry espionage and racial animus. Preston's team had not only targeted Zara for harassment, but had planned to use the ensuing scandal to derail Marcus's upcoming diversity initiative announcement and damage Aurora's reputation among minority travelers. They knew exactly who you were, Marcus realized with horror. This wasn't about mistaken identity. They targeted you precisely because you're my daughter. The MIT interview still loomed, now just hours away. Despite everything, Zara remained determined to attend. I won't let them take this opportunity from me too, she insisted. I've worked too hard. Marcus squeezed her hand proudly. You'll attend the interview and you'll be brilliant, but afterward, we need to decide how to respond to this attack. We have options. We could handle this quietly, use our influence. To ensure those responsible are punished while avoiding publicity, Zara shook her head decisively. No, that's what they're counting on. That we'll use our privilege to make this go away. If we do that, it solves nothing for the countless people who face this discrimination every day without the resources to fight back. She straightened in her seat, her expression resolute. This wasn't just an attack on me or on Aurora Airlines. This was an attack on the fundamental right of people to be treated with dignity regardless of their skin color. We need to fight this publicly, transparently, and completely. As they developed their strategy, Zara's phone buzzed with a news alert. Her heart sank as she read the headline. Entitled CEO's daughter causes flight diversion, claims discrimination. Preston's team had moved faster than anticipated, already spinning a counter-narrative that portrayed Zara as privileged and demanding. According to these reports, she had expected special treatment and became disruptive when treated like a normal passenger. The article even included quotes from supposed witnesses describing her behavior as aggressive and entitled. "They're trying to control the narrative," Marcus observed grimly. "And they have media contacts we don't." Zara scrolled through the comment section, where readers were already debating her character based on manipulated information. Some defended her, citing the viral videos, while others accepted the article's framing uncritically. The battle for public opinion had begun, and Preston was playing to win. Have you ever discovered that what initially seemed like a simple act of prejudice was actually part of something much more calculated and sinister? Comment number 1. If you've witnessed how power and privilege can be weaponized against those fighting for equality, hit the like button if you believe we need more transparency about discrimination in major institutions, and subscribe if you want to follow Zara's journey as she faces an opponent who will stop at nothing to destroy her reputation and her father's company. Will Zara's MIT interview be sabotaged too? Can she and Marcus expose the truth before Preston's narrative takes hold? The conspiracy runs deeper than anyone imagined, and the real battle has only just begun. Despite the media assault already underway, Zara arrived at MIT with determination etched into every line of her face. Marcus had made arrangements for campus security to ensure no reporters could interfere with her interview. The engineering department had been understanding about the delay, rescheduling her appointment without question once they learned the circumstances. As Zara walked through the historic halls toward the aerospace division, she focused on controlling her breathing and compartmentalizing the trauma of the past 24 hours. This interview represented her future, a future no one would take from her. Professor Eleanor Chen, head of MIT's Aerospace Engineering Department, greeted Zara with a warm handshake and perceptive eyes that immediately noted her bandaged wrists. "Ms. Williams, we've been following the news. Are you certain you wouldn't prefer to reschedule?" The concern seemed genuine, but Zara recognized it as the first test of her resilience. "Thank you for your consideration, Professor Chen, but I've been preparing for this opportunity for years. I'm ready." The professor's slight nod conveyed respect for her decision. For the next 2 hours, Zara immersed herself in the technical discussion she had trained for, presenting her designs for more efficient propulsion systems with the clarity and confidence that had earned her perfect scores throughout high school. She answered complex questions about thrust ratios and fuel efficiency, her mind temporarily freed from the weight of discrimination as she engaged with pure engineering principles. When Professor Chen asked her to solve an unexpected problem involving orbital mechanics, Zara approached the whiteboard with such methodical brilliance that the interview panel exchanged impressed glances. "Remarkable work, Ms. Williams," Professor Chen said as the interview concluded. "Your approach to the orbital calculation was unlike anything we've seen from an undergraduate applicant." The genuine admiration in her voice confirmed what Zara already sensed. She had exceeded expectations despite everything working against her. As they shook hands, the professor added quietly, "The engineering world needs voices like yours. We'll be in touch very soon." The momentary triumph faded quickly as Zara exited the building to find her father looking grim. "Preston's team has escalated," he explained, showing her his tablet. Skyway Airlines had called an emergency press conference where Victor Preston himself, silver-haired and patrician in a bespoke suit, expressed deep concern about the preferential treatment being given to the incident. "While we respect Aurora Airlines' internal processes," Preston told the assembled reporters with practiced sincerity, "we find it troubling that basic security protocols are being undermined based on family connections." The strategy was as transparent as it was effective. By positioning himself as a defender of equal treatment, Preston was twisting the narrative completely. Doctored video clips began circulating online, edited to remove the context of Zara's calm compliance, and emphasizing moments that could be misinterpreted as resistance. Paid commentators flooded social media platforms with seemingly objective questions about special privileges and the full story. "They've planted people claiming to be witnesses from the flight," Marcus explained as their car navigated through Cambridge. 3 individuals have given interviews describing your behavior as disruptive, though our passenger manifest shows none of them were actually on board. The calculated nature of the attack was staggering. While Zara had been fighting for her future in the interview room, Preston's team had been systematically undermining her credibility with a well-funded disinformation campaign. Their phones buzzed simultaneously with a news alert. Preston had announced a commitment to unbiased safety standards in the form of a new security training program, directly competing with the diversity initiative Marcus had planned to unveil the following week. The message was clear. Preston wasn't just attacking Zara. He was using this manufactured crisis to position Skyway Airlines as the reasonable alternative to Aurora's supposedly preferential treatment of minorities. "He's trying to steal your initiative while destroying its credibility," Zara observed, her analytical mind cutting through the noise to Preston's ultimate objective. "This isn't just about me anymore." Marcus nodded grimly. "It never was. You were just the vehicle he chose to attack everything we've built." As they strategized their response, neither noticed the black sedan that had been following their car since leaving MIT. Further evidence that Preston's operation extended far beyond a single flight incident. The lawsuit Zara and Marcus filed sent shockwaves through the airline industry. Their legal team submitted comprehensive claims against multiple parties: Skyway Airlines for corporate espionage and civil rights violations, Aurora employees Rebecca, Whitman and Brian Mitchell for discrimination and falsifying reports, Hartford Airport Security for excessive force and rights violations, and Victor Preston personally for orchestrating the entire campaign. The filing included timestamps of communications, sworn statements from passengers who had recorded the incident, and forensic evidence of the coordinated attack. Preston's response was immediate and aggressive. His legal team filed countersuits, claiming defamation, business interference, and reckless accusations without evidence. The business press, where Preston had cultivated relationships for decades, presented the competing narratives as a he said, she said situation, rather than examining the substantial evidence the Williams family had provided. Cable news networks featured split-screen debates about whether the incident represented discrimination or entitled behavior, with Preston's surrogates dominating airtime. The media circus intensified with each development. Reporters camped outside Zara's school, forcing her to attend classes remotely. Security experts Marcus hired intercepted multiple death threats against both him and his daughter, necessitating additional protection for their home. The stress manifested physically for Zara. Sleepless nights replaying the trauma, anxiety attacks before online classes, and difficulty concentrating on her studies. But she refused to withdraw from public view, understanding that disappearing was exactly what their opponents wanted. "The preliminary hearing is tomorrow," Marcus informed Zara as they reviewed documents with their legal team in their home's secured office. "Preston's strategy seems to be overwhelming us with paperwork while continuing the public relations assault." Their lead attorney, Vanessa Washington, nodded grimly. "They've submitted over 3,000 pages of evidence that the judge needs to review, most of it irrelevant. Classic delay tactic to drain resources and exhaust opponents." The Williams family had resources that couldn't be easily drained, however, and a determination that couldn't be exhausted. They had also found unexpected allies. Several civil rights organizations had filed amicus briefs supporting their case, and a grassroots campaign of Aurora Airlines customers had organized to counter Preston's narrative online. The truth was gradually gaining traction, though the battle remained uphill against Preston's media connections. When they arrived at the federal courthouse the following morning, the scene resembled a film premiere more than a legal proceeding. Television crews lined the steps, protesters with competing messages flanked the entrance, and spectators strained against barricades for a glimpse of the participants. Inside, the courtroom fell silent as Judge Eleanor Harmon entered, a severe woman with 3 decades on the bench and a reputation for impartiality that bordered on coldness. "Before we begin," Judge Harmon announced, adjusting her glasses, "I want to be clear that I will not tolerate this courtroom becoming a media spectacle. These are serious allegations that deserve serious consideration." Her sharp gaze swept across both legal teams. "Now let's proceed with the evidentiary submissions." What followed was Preston's first major counterattack. His legal team presented a surprise witness, a flight attendant who hadn't been on the original flight but claimed to have had problematic interactions with Zara on a previous Aurora flight. The testimony was detailed, specific, and completely fabricated. Zara watched in disbelief as the woman described an incident that had never occurred, complete with dates and flight numbers that matched Zara's actual travel history. Information that should have been private. More disturbing still was Judge Harmon's apparent receptiveness to this testimony, overruling multiple objections from Zara's attorneys. When they attempted to present the security footage from the actual incident, the judge seemed suddenly concerned with proper authentication protocols that hadn't been required for Preston's witnesses. As the day progressed, a chilling pattern emerged. Evidence supporting Zara's claims faced rigorous scrutiny or was delayed for further review, while Preston's submissions were accepted with minimal questioning. During a recess, Vanessa pulled Marcus and Zara into a conference room, her expression grave. "Something's not right. We filed the security footage with proper authentication last week, but the clerk is claiming it was never received. And 3 of our key affidavits are apparently missing from the record." The implications were clear. Preston's influence extended beyond the media and into the judicial system itself. They were fighting against not just a corporation, but an entrenched power structure designed to protect its own. The afternoon session delivered the most crushing blow. Judge Harmon announced that due to inconsistencies in the evidentiary record, she was inclined to dismiss several of the Williams' core claims pending further documentation. The courtroom gallery murmured in surprise. The judge was effectively gutting their case based on procedural technicalities, while accepting Preston's unsubstantiated counter-narrative. As they left the courtroom, the media was already reporting a major setback for Zara's disputed claims of discrimination. For the first time since the ordeal began, Zara felt the weight of defeat pressing down on her. They had evidence, truth, and justice on their side, yet somehow they were losing. The system that was supposed to protect victims was instead shielding the powerful perpetrators. As reporters shouted questions on the courthouse steps, she caught sight of Victor Preston watching from his limousine across the street, a satisfied smile on his face. The message was clear. In a rigged game, even the strongest players could be defeated. The legal setback left the Williams family regrouping in their attorney's office, the atmosphere heavy with frustration. "This goes beyond normal judicial discretion," Vanessa insisted, pacing the conference room. "The systematic exclusion of our evidence while accepting their fabricated testimony suggests interference." Marcus rubbed his temples, the strain of the past weeks evident in the new lines on his face. But proving judicial misconduct is nearly impossible without concrete evidence. Preston has been careful to maintain plausible deniability at every step. Their strategy session was interrupted by Vanessa's assistant with an unexpected message. Officer Taylor Jackson from Hartford Airport Security was in the lobby, requesting to speak with them privately. The same Officer Jackson who had shown small kindnesses to Zara during her detention. "This could be another trap," Vanessa warned, but Zara shook her head. "I don't think so." She seemed uncomfortable with what was happening even then. When Jackson entered, she was in civilian clothes, rather than her security uniform, her expression a mixture of determination and fear. "I shouldn't be here," she began without preamble. "They're watching all of you and probably me too by now, but I can't be part of this anymore." From her bag, she produced a small digital recorder and several USB drives. "I've been documenting everything since the day of the incident." Chief Reynolds knew exactly who Zara was before she even arrived at the airport. This wasn't random discrimination. They were waiting for her specifically. The recordings were damning. In one, Reynolds could be heard instructing his staff to make an example of the Williams girl and to ensure she learned her place. In another, he explicitly ordered evidence to be altered before submission to the court. Most shocking was a recorded phone call where Reynolds discussed arrangements with someone who appeared to be coordinating between airport security and Judge Harmon's office. "The judge knows what needs to happen," the unidentified caller assured Reynolds. "Preston's team has made that very clear to her." "There's more," Jackson continued. her voice steadier now that she had committed to her course. "I have Rebecca Whitman on record admitting she targeted Zara specifically because of her race, saying she was following instructions from higher up to create an incident. And I have documentation showing how security footage was deliberately misplaced after being submitted to the court." She hesitated before adding, "I should have done something sooner. The systematic racism I've witnessed in airport security isn't new, but this orchestrated targeting of a specific individual crossed a line I can't ignore." Vanessa immediately recognized the legal implications. This is evidence of witness tampering, obstruction of justice, and possibly judicial misconduct. We need to approach this carefully. If Judge Harmon is compromised, we can't simply submit this through normal channels. Marcus nodded grimly. "We need a different judge, and possibly federal oversight. This goes beyond our civil case now, this is criminal conspiracy." As they debated strategy, Jackson's phone buzzed with a news alert. She paled as she read the screen. "They know I'm here. Reynolds just announced an internal investigation into security officers who may have compromised protocols during the Williams incident. They're setting me up to discredit anything I might say." The retaliation had begun with stunning speed, confirming their suspicions about how closely they were being monitored. "You can stay in one of our secure properties," Marcus offered immediately. "We have resources to protect whistleblowers." Jackson looked conflicted but ultimately nodded. "My career in security is over either way. I might as well make it count for something." Her courage in the face of certain professional destruction moved Zara deeply. This was someone sacrificing everything simply because it was right, without power, privilege, or personal connection to motivate her decision. With Jackson's evidence in hand, Vanessa implemented their new strategy. Rather than returning to Judge Harmon's compromised courtroom, they filed an emergency petition with the Federal Appeals Court, including the evidence of judicial interference. Simultaneously, they contacted the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division with documentation of the conspiracy that now stretched across state lines and involved multiple corporate entities, elevating the case to potential federal prosecution. Victor Preston's smug confidence began to crack as news of these filings broke. His carefully constructed narrative had depended on controlling the legal process through Judge Harmon. Now facing potential federal scrutiny, other participants in the conspiracy started seeking distance. Brian Mitchell, the Aurora purser who had supported Rebecca's false claims, contacted Vanessa about a potential immunity deal in exchange for testimony about Preston's direct involvement in planning the incident. The tide was turning, but Preston wasn't defeated yet. His final desperate countermove came in the form of a midnight approach to Officer Jackson, a combination of bribes and threats delivered by an anonymous intermediary at the safe house where she was staying. "Consider what's at stake," the message concluded. "Preston can offer $5 million for your silence, or ensure you never work again anywhere in the country. The choice is yours." The attempted witness tampering, captured on the safe house's security system, became the final piece of evidence that broke the conspiracy wide open. The federal courtroom fell silent as Judge Raymond Washington delivered his ruling. Unlike the theatrical atmosphere of the earlier proceedings, this final judgment carried the somber weight of justice long delayed, but finally served. This court finds compelling evidence of an organized conspiracy to violate Ms. Williams' civil rights, orchestrated by defendant Victor Preston with the cooperation of multiple co-defendants. The judge's voice remained measured but firm as he continued. "The deliberate targeting of an individual based on race, the fabrication of evidence, and the attempted corruption of judicial proceedings represent an egregious abuse of power that this court cannot and will not tolerate." The judgment was comprehensive and devastating for Preston and his allies. Rebecca Whitman, Brian Mitchell, and Dennis Reynolds faced criminal charges for their roles in the conspiracy. Hartford Airport security was placed under federal monitoring for systematic civil rights violations. Judge Harmon had resigned the previous week, facing a judicial conduct investigation. Most significantly, Victor Preston himself was ordered to pay substantial damages and faced separate criminal indictments for witness tampering, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy charges that could result in prison time. For Zara, however, the most meaningful victory wasn't the monetary settlement, but the structural changes the case had sparked. The court mandated comprehensive anti-discrimination training across all major airlines and airport security teams nationwide. Civil rights organizations were granted oversight authority to monitor compliance. The case had become a landmark precedent for fighting institutional racism in transportation, creating protections that would benefit countless travelers who lacked Zara's resources to fight such battles individually. When the final gavel fell, reporters rushed for comment, but Zara requested a different venue for her response. 1 week later, she stood at a podium at MIT, where she had not only been accepted to the aerospace engineering program, but offered a prestigious research position developing inclusive technologies for air travel. Before an audience of students, industry leaders, and civil rights advocates, Zara announced the creation of the Williams Justice Foundation, funded by her settlement. This foundation will provide legal support to victims of discrimination who lack the resources to fight powerful opponents, she explained, her voice strong and clear. But more importantly, it will fund educational initiatives to address the root causes of discrimination in our society. She paused, making eye contact with Officer Taylor Jackson, who sat in the front row, now employed as the Foundation's first program director. True justice isn't just about punishing wrongdoing, it's about transforming systems to prevent future harm. Marcus joined her at the podium to announce Aurora Airlines' new comprehensive anti-racism protocols, developed in consultation with civil rights experts and now being implemented across the entire company. What happened to my daughter was not an isolated incident, but a symptom of broader structural problems, he acknowledged. As industry leaders, we have a responsibility not just to avoid discrimination ourselves, but to actively dismantle the systems that enable it. The initiatives announced that day represented more than corporate damage control. They were substantive changes designed to create lasting impact. Aurora established the industry's first minority pilot scholarship program, invested in diverse communities historically underserved by air travel, and implemented accountability measures with real consequences for discriminatory behavior at any level of the company. Most revolutionary was the creation of an independent oversight board with actual enforcement authority, comprised of civil rights experts rather than industry insiders. 3 years later, Zara stood in the engineering lab at MIT, putting final touches on her revolutionary aircraft design, one that would make air travel more accessible and eco-friendly than ever before. The journey from traumatized teenager to respected aerospace engineer hadn't been easy. There had been therapy sessions to process the trauma, nights haunted by memories of handcuffs cutting into her wrists, and moments of doubt about whether any system could truly change. But there had also been triumph, growth, and the knowledge that her suffering had created protection for others. As she prepared to present her design at the International Aviation Conference, Zara received a text message with a news alert. Victor Preston had been sentenced to 7 years in federal prison after his final appeal was rejected. Justice had been slow, but ultimately unavoidable. The system hadn't worked perfectly, but it had worked, aided by evidence, persistence, and the courage of individuals like Taylor Jackson, who chose principle over self-protection. Boarding the plane to the conference, Zara experienced a moment of déjà vu as she approached the first-class cabin. But this time, the flight attendant checked her ticket with a genuine smile. The security officers nodded respectfully as they recognized the now famous engineer, and the captain himself came to welcome her aboard. As the aircraft lifted into the sky, Zara gazed out the window at the clouds below, reflecting on how far she had come and how many barriers had been broken. The path to justice had been arduous and painful, but it had led to transformation, not just for her, but for an entire industry that would never be the same again. Zara's journey teaches us that justice sometimes requires both personal courage and systemic power to challenge entrenched discrimination. While her father's position provided resources most victims lack, the true transformation came from refusing to settle for personal vindication alone. Instead, she leveraged her privilege to create lasting change for others who would face similar discrimination without her advantages. The story reveals how racism often operates as both individual bias and coordinated institutional practice, requiring multifaceted responses at personal, corporate, and legal levels. We learn that documentation is crucial in fighting discrimination, from passenger videos to Officer Jackson's recordings, as prejudice thrives when it can operate in shadows. The case demonstrates how whistleblowers like Jackson are essential to exposing injustice, even at great personal cost. Perhaps most importantly, Zara's experience shows that meaningful change isn't just punishing individual bad actors, but transforming the systems that enable discrimination. The creation of the Williams Justice Foundation highlights how victims can become architects of systemic reform, channeling trauma into positive change. Through educational initiatives, legal support, and industry accountability measures, Zara ensured her suffering created protection for countless others. The story ultimately reminds us that while discrimination remains deeply embedded in American institutions, dedicated individuals working strategically can dismantle these structures and build more equitable systems in their place. What would you have done in Zara's position? Fight the system despite the risks or protect your own future by staying silent? Have you ever witnessed discrimination and wished you had the courage or resources to intervene? Comment below with your thoughts on how we can all work to create more just systems, whether we have power or not. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button to help others find this important message. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories that expose injustice and celebrate those fighting for change. Share this video with someone who needs to understand how discrimination operates in our society. Thank you for watching, and remember, true justice isn't just about individual victories, but transforming the world for everyone who comes after us.